So I was practically raised in endurance sports. Both my parents are triathletes and runners and cyclists, and it was no surprise to anyone when I started dabbling in the same things they did. And it was really through my adventures and meeting people in these sports that I really started to understand the importance of goal setting, not just in endurance sports, but in life. In endurance sports, we could set goals for ourselves, whether it was meeting a training plan prescribed to us, or if we needed to hit a certain time that someone wanted of us, or to get to the peak of our endurance at a certain time so we could do best at a race. And a lot of people in endurance sports would set goals for themselves, and this would translate into really good performance for them. And it was really no surprise when in 2009 a study published in the Journal of Exercise, Sports Exercise and Physiology found a positive correlation between setting goals and performance. So people that set goals for themselves did well in things. And this was not just in sports and not just in triathlon, but this is across the board, that people that set good grade goals for themselves would get better grades. If people really wanted to get a job, they might have a better chance of getting that job. And this is incredibly interesting, but it wasn't surprising. What was more interesting was a study published in the article in the Journal of Health and Sports by Ian Hetzelwood in 2011, and this talked about self-efficacy. And self-efficacy, defined by the American Psychological Association, refers to an individual's belief in his or her capacity to execute behaviors necessary to produce specific performance attainments. What this basically means is self-efficacy is your belief in your ability to do something. So this study found that people that have high self-efficacy, people that believe in themselves, that believe they can do well, will likely do better. Again, no real surprise to anyone. I mean, this makes sense, right? What's more interesting is that people that do well have increased self-efficacy. So what this means is people that do well in something believe that they can do well in that thing again. But it wasn't just that thing. People that did well in something, not just sports, maybe it was a job interview or achieving a goal, allow them to believe that they could do well in other things. So maybe think of a goal that you've had and think, if you've achieved that goal, does that make you feel good? Of course, probably, I hope. That achieving your goals allows you to have higher self-efficacy and allows you to believe that you can achieve other goals. And this makes sense. In cross life, and especially in adolescence, people seem to have ups and downs. And maybe self-efficacy has a place in this. That people that have higher self-efficacy do well in things. And this translates into higher self-efficacy and a belief that they can do things better. So this kind of circular pattern makes people always seem on the rise, that everything's going well in your life because maybe you did one thing and that was a catalyst for another and another. But on the opposite side, maybe it's not going well. Maybe you're getting down on yourself, and maybe that's translating into lower self-efficacy, which is translating into, again, you getting down on yourself and not believing you can do something. So instead of doing well at the things that you would usually do well at, because you didn't do well at other things, you now can't do well at these things. So it's incredibly important to set goals for yourself so you can increase your self-efficacy, and then because of your increased self-efficacy, do well in other things. And this is incredibly important in participation in sports. In a study done by Stephen Croft in 2009, he looked at the top motives for participation in triathlon. He found that personal goal achievement was the highest rated reason for participation in triathlon. Additionally, self-efficacy, self-goal achievement, making yourself feel good, it was also a very high reason. So not only is goal setting good, but it's also a reason that we do sports, so we can achieve goals for ourselves and then feel better about ourselves. And yet goal setting, just like everything else, has its dangers. Because sometimes we start not just to be too dedicated to our goals, we start to become defined by our goals. We start to become transformed into people that just become their goals, that they're only focused on this one thing, and this one thing comes to define them. We start to look maybe kind of crazy, like this guy here. He's got his little satellite helmet here, and his aero helmet, and his nice bike, and his high socks and stuff, and he's only thinking about his training or his what he needs to do to make himself better. And this problem is kind of important in setting goals, that maybe you become too dedicated to them. And I think this quote by John Green really personifies that. It says, life has become the future. Everything you do in life is about the future. You go to high school so you can go to college, so you can get a good job, so you can get a good house, so you can afford to send your kids to college, so they can get a good job, so they can get a good house, so they can afford to send their kids to college. And maybe that's the root of the problem, that instead of living in the present, of enjoying ourselves in the now, we're only thinking about our goals. We're becoming so focused on our targets that we've stopped seeing the small things around us. Maybe in our dedication to something as important as our bliss, maybe it's the thing that really gives us true fulfillment in life. For me, it was always racing. Maybe that stopped us from seeing all the small things around us, our friends and our family who needed our help or that we haven't really appreciated. Maybe it was a new hobby or a new relationship that we missed because we were only focused on this one thing. For me, it was always train hard today so you can train hard tomorrow, so you can train hard the day after that, so you can race hard the day after that, and then once you're done racing, you can race and you can rinse and you can repeat and you can train and then you can train and then you can train and you can train and you can race and rinse and repeat and do that over again until someday you realize that what did you miss? Because of my goals, what did I miss? What did I miss on my training rides that instead of thinking about all the little things around me of maybe the other riders that I was friends with, I was just thinking about, oh, I have to hit this interval or hit this heart rate at this time and meet this training plan, which is great for me, and it's doing all these great things. And yet, what am I missing? What did I miss? Did I miss out on something as important as family, or something as important as friendship, or social interaction, or whatever it may be, because I was only thinking about racing? And it doesn't just have to be sports. It can be anything. Maybe you're so focused on a job interview or getting a good grade or becoming the best at something that instead of really appreciating the moment, you only think about what's ahead. And that's a really big problem, is we stop living in the present and we only live for the future. And the present, ladies and gentlemen, is what's happening now, and nothing's more important than what's happening right now. Your goals, they're always going to be there. That's the point. They're goals. You've set them for yourself. That doesn't mean they have to define you, because you can turn away from them for just a second and look at the things around. So my question is, when do we slow down? When do we slow down and enjoy the small things? Instead of really just looking at this one thing, when do we slow down and look at the small things that we would miss if we didn't pay attention or we didn't think about them? And that's, I think, where life is really lived. Not in the future, not in the past, but in the present. The present is the most important. And it's incredibly important that we live not only in the present, but we live in our own present. We don't make up things because we need to achieve something else. We live in what's around us. We enjoy what's around us. And we don't become pinpointed on this one thing that will happen in a couple years, and we need to make our present all about the future. The point of the present is to live now, because our goals, as great as they are, cannot come to define us, because that's the point of the goals, that we strive for them, but they are only that. They're nothing more than that. They're something we love, but they're nothing more. They can't come to define us, and they can't come to make us do things we don't want, and they can't come, especially, to make us stop appreciating the things around us. Thank you.